not only the physiological aspect of sexuality and aging, but also the psychological aspect, because everything is part of an interpretation. For example, there was a very famous study that they injected people with noradrenaline, and they put them in a room where all people were angry and they became angry, and they put them in another room where all people were happy and they were happy. So everything is subject to interpretation. It's not just to inject somebody, but also the psychological aspect is very, very important. So this hormonal decline, of course, makes you look bigger. And when you gain weight, your self-esteem will go down. So of course, in men, greater physical stimulation is required than before because of decreased libido and low energy levels and all these other well-known hair loss, difficulty sleeping because of hormonal decline. And of course, the benefits of high testosterone, testosterone decline there is a sexual appetite will be reduced, and but however, there is a new study that found that testosterone estradiol imbalance does not appear to affect erectile dysfunction and less sexual desire. Therefore, estradiol might not be necessary to be checked. Now, it's very interesting, but testosterone changes with our circadian rhythms. That is a very important thing, that it depends that, again, the sleeping patterns are very important in the circadian rhythms, because the circadian rhythms affect how much testosterone you have, even as a younger man. And of course, fitness will enhance sexual activity, but people have all kinds of excuses about fitness. They say, well, the goldfish dies early, how come it swims all the time and will die early? And however, they don't understand that the fitness will extend their life, and they don't really have very much choice. Of course, lack of sexual appetite and sexual interest is more prominent in aged women, like you have in the cartoon. It says, well, no sex, no sex, no sex, and now you can have another spin because it's your birthday, but really she's expecting that it's going to be no sex, because they don't really want to have sex. And we've done an experimental study with 8 subjects that received 12 treatments of a new technology from London University, and we found a statistically significant increase in testosterone concentrations. The problem with gain weight is that the diabetics becomes more prominent. And again, the same treatment from Shital Badami in India, they found that fatty liver previously, and there was no fatty liver after this treatment, because the visceral fat content was significantly reduced. There was no back pain, and also the diabetic status was improved. And now, so a follow-up study from Ballot and Weiss with 19 subjects, they received 12 treatments of this effortless exercise technique from London University, and they found that there was an increased concentration of D3, DHEA, and DHEA is also associated to collagen and bone density. So DHEA will increase collagen and bone density as well. So subjects were also reported a boost of energy and sexuality. How does this work? This is how it works. Basically, this technology sends a signal to the motor nerve, and that motor nerve starts to stimulate the motor nerves around it. And in response to that, there are, as you can see, there's many motor nerves are excited, and they cause waves of motor nerves that they eventually will have to reach the brain, because all signals reach the brain from the CNS. From the brain will respond by increasing hormones, thyroid and growth hormone for lipolysis and muscle growth. And as you can see, the insulin signals will enter the cells, and the fat cells will start shrinking, and the energy that is created from that, the lipids that come into the bloodstream will create the muscle, will form the muscle by acting on myosin that is necessary proteins for the muscle growth, as well as the IGF-1. A clinical study with 12 subjects who received this treatment, they 3 times weekly for 5 weeks. They indicated an increase in both sexual desire and activity and ability to sustain sexual intercourse longer with men in the experimental group than those in the control group who received no exercise or anything else. And that's a study from Thomas Bernard, 2013, he's a Canadian doctor. Another very interesting effect that it has is that it separates the red blood cells. So it acts like a natural Viagra, basically, because it increases blood circulation. Also, the very interesting thing is that the blood works with the lymphatic system to carry waste products to the kidneys and the liver, and therefore for enhanced lymphatic drainage, so the toxicity is reduced. And to increase toxicity in older age leads to reduced sexuality. Why? Because the toxicity interferes with all the entire endocrinological system, including gut hormones, sex hormones. Hence, they increase sexuality as a result of intense detoxification. So toxicity is an enemy of sexuality. Now, low estrogen deficiency will create what we spoke about, the psychological part of the low self-esteem. And of course, men who not exactly, they've been married all their lives, like this lady says, I look in the mirror, how can you say something to me to make me feel better? He says, well, you have very good eyesight. So the other problem with females is that in women, the estrogen decline leads to a loss of subcutaneous tissue in the mons pubis and atrophy of labia majora and shortening the loss of elasticity in the vagina barrel. So basically you have, during intercourse, you have, it's very painful. So the reduction of vaginal thickness of the epithelium from 8 to 10 layers to 3 to 4 layers leads to all these noxious sensations and the bleeding during intercourse. And also, the loss of lactobacillus species and the lactic acid and increased vaginal pH creates a lot of bacterial infections. And laser and radiofrequency methods may create, they firm the tissue there. However, they reduce sexual feeling, sexual sensation for women. So they're good for the men, but not for the women. Now, a recent clinical study that we did, we used 25 females who received 10 vaginal rejuvenation treatments 3 times weekly for 3.5 weeks. And they showed the report result. And 90% of the women studied reported no bleeding and burning sensations during the intercourse, and a reduction of bacterial infections, and vaginal infections, of course. And 95% of women reported increased sexual contact, and increased sexual desire, and increased frequency from an average of once in 3 months to once weekly. Also, this exercise, this type, an earlier version of this technology in 2008, it was invented by Janet Pollock. He was also the co-inventor of the pacemaker. They did a study with female incontinence, 10 sessions, and they found quite a dramatic improvement without any other methods. Now, aging results in the loss of self-confidence. We spoke about that. When I was young, I was hoping to wake up beautiful. Now I just hope I wake up. And of course, the hair loss is a problem. And most for men and women, you have actually the 2 ladies. One is a man and the other one is a lady that were treated with this technology by Elaine Wong in Hong Kong. And there was quite a good improvement. Now, Also, there are other things that happen during aging. Like, for example, herpes zoster is something that happens in older people, and it makes them feel horrible about themselves. And with this technology, we found a very significant improvement. It was only 2 treatments, and we found significant improvement with herpes zoster. And this is the same lady, but at the side. And after the second treatment, you can see a major improvement. Of course, rejuvenation for the aged will improve their self-esteem, and that's another example. It's only 1 treatment of rejuvenation. Now, the sexual dysfunction of diabetics becomes a big problem, and it's not just because of the weight gain, but it's also because of the pain and also they get wounds that they don't heal, and they get poor mobility. So there was a study with Nouris Lambert, 2017. She is a dermatologist from Netherlands, and 98% of her patients reported more mobility, and also the wounds healed, and there was no reoccurrence of the wound after 1 year. How does this work? This is a more complicated thing. This has very, very low energy, so you don't feel anything. But at those energies, the electrons can open up the ion gates of the cells. And as they open the ion gates of the cells, they can insert the signals. So that's the method of the administration. The signals will basically collide with other signals. They will join with other signals, and they will fill in signals that have deteriorated with age. And these ways, they will reestablish cellular network pathways that will help the rejuvenation of the system and the improved health of the system as a whole. Now, let's talk about the psychological component. Actually, in psychodynamics, from Freud, he started talking about how the libido and the hysterical women that frustrated sexuality was the reason for all that. And then Wilhelm Reich went a step further, and he said, no, it's not just the libido, it's not that the sexual energy, it's all energy. So he said that all psychopathology and medical illness is the result of blocked energy. So also the Chinese, of course, they speak about the qi and how the blocked energy creates psychopathology and also physiological problems. So exercise as well, and if that's not possible because you're too old and you can injure yourself, or effortless exercise that you have with this technology from London will release energy and will restore the health. I did a study for my dissertation in physiology, neurophysiology, and on emotion and physical illness. And it was very evident that shame, the emotion of shame, seemed to had a higher correlation with physical illness. And actually, anger was the most adaptive feeling. People that are angry live many, many years. Even people that are happy, they don't live that long, and I'll tell you why. The reason why is because people that are happy are always very willing to take care of other people, and they form what we call this type C personality. And Temoshok did a lot of research with type C personality, which is the people that would always put others first. They would always satisfy their spouse during sexual intercourse, but they don't care about being sexually satisfied. They will always hide their negative feelings and always be positive. And these are the people that had the highest incidence of melanoma cancer. And Temoshok did a lot of experiments, both with animals and humans. And you can search her, she's quite famous. I worked with her when I was in San Francisco. I was part of her research group. So now psychotherapy should focus on self-approval and acceptance, because you don't want the shame feeling that will create more problems. Balanced appraisal of your strengths and weaknesses. You cannot overstate yourself, you cannot understate yourself. You have to stand for your rights, because the type C personality is the type of personality that will not stand for the rights, that they will always try to please others. And do not close the door in social contacts and, of course, pleasure and sexual activity. And learning how to turn adversity into advantage and basically free yourself from the past and move on. So psychotherapy in older age, we're not talking about psychoanalysis or psychodynamic psychotherapy, but some psychotherapy is very important, and including that aspect in your clinics might be very beneficial to your patients. Thank you very much for your kind attention.